Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Adobe Live here in the UK. We have a very good guest here today for you. Hi, Kay, welcome.
Hi, Maddy. It's nice to be with you today.
It is. It's lovely to have you on, and really it's going to be great to share your work. Very exciting session planned for you today, and we're live on Behance. We're live every weekday from 12 till 1 p.m. So come and join us on Behance for the chat. If you have any questions for Kay today on process or the colors, fonts, typography, anything at all, then put those in Behance. We're chatting at behance.net/live. We'll also be showing this on YouTube, but the chat will be in Behance and will continue in Discord after the live stream. Hello to everybody in the chat already. There's so many of you here. Great to see some people. Here we go. We've got Sandria, we've got Catherine, Jackie, Steve, all the way from New Zealand. So really great for you to join again and to see you. Hi to Stuart as well. So a big group of people who have joined to see what you've got in store for us today, Kay.
Amazing. I can't wait.
Cool. And Kay, you've been, the best way to describe your work, really, you're an expert in branding, graphic design, illustration. There's lots of things that you do. But today we're going to focus on some of the work that you've actually created for Adobe Live.
Yes. Yeah, I always say I'm more of a graphic designer that uses other tools to do graphic design. So we will see some illustrations, some typography. And yeah, I'm really excited actually that we've done this work together with Adobe.
Good. It looks really good, and I can't wait. Do you know what? Let's just jump straight in. We've got an hour. So as I said, any questions, right? Definitely get in. I can see that Stuart's hashtag, what mug has Maddy got today? This is like a thing, Kay, that every day I've got a different mug from a different place in the world. It's Seattle today. So there you go. Seattle's the mug of the day. So Kay, more exciting than my mug is the work that you have here to share with us. Let's see a little bit about what you do.
Cool. Yeah, I wanted to dwell very little on myself and show a bit more of my work. But basically, I'm from Serbia, from Belgrade. Born and raised there, and I moved to Venice to study graphic design when I was 18. I stayed there for about 7 years, learned Italian, got to meet a lot of amazing friends and learn a lot about a lot of things. But since I think 5 years now, I've been living in Berlin, which I think is an amazing city for any designer, artist, visual or not. And yeah, so I've been working on a lot of different things. And in the first years when I was starting to do my, let's say, design agency kind of business side of things, I was doing a lot of work for music, so music records, festivals, things like this. I got to know a lot of really cool producers, even in my personal life. So I was doing a lot of record covers, which I think was really interesting at a time, because I don't think there's a bigger satisfaction than seeing your work on a record, like a vinyl record live. I think I was using a lot of really obviously very bright colors for everything I do. And at that time, a lot of textures as well. So I was doing this kind of mix of collage and vector illustration, which for me at the time was really interesting. So as you can imagine, like a mix of Illustrator and Photoshop at all times. And then I kind of started being more flat, as to speak, in my designs, even more bright colors, illustrations, and I was really obsessed with this kind of exuberance of color and elements, colors and shapes at all times. And then actually at the moment, what I'm doing is a bit more typographic, I would say. These are just some cutouts from things I've done. I've worked with Sony Norway and my dear friend who was animating this, Ed Henry, and we worked on a lot of videos stuff and branding for them. I've been producing a lot of typography work in quarantine, this Slack piece where I think I needed to do something, so I was posting something every second day. Things that my friends or coworkers would say, just create a typography piece out of it. So that has been really fun. And also it was great to be featured in the femme type book that I think is one of your guests as well.
Yeah, we had a lot with Femme Type, actually. They were really popular live streams, and the work that they did, the work they do is great. And you know, everyone's saying that they love your colors and everything you have here. Steve says, these are excellent. Sandrine's like, that's excellent. Kirsty's just amazing. Excellent work. Brian, you know, great colors. You've really got an eye for like all of these the colors. They all go together so well.
Yeah, I think this is really something that really, I think it looks simple when you see it, but it takes a lot of trial and error, let's say, because the more you add, the more complex it gets. So this is literally the bulk of my work. That's why I say like it's really easy to kind of reproduce afterwards, but like to come to that point, it really takes a lot of time.
Yeah, and where do you get your inspiration from to do this?
Well, I will show a bit of inspiration later as well, but my main inspiration is really this kind of like 80s exuberance of color, and then also like modern art. People like, you know, Matisse or the early modern art that used a lot of colors in this kind of composition. And also, I mean, I'm also a branding designer by trade, and I love typography and this kind of branding and everything I do. So this is why it's also kind of always, it's never just pure illustration or art. It's always something that needs to work with something else.
It looks so good. It's so punchy. And you know, people saying in the chat, Stuart says, you know, it's tough to make this simple because it looks really simple, right? But there's so much that goes into it, especially with the motion graphics and the animations.
Yeah. This is the thing I was saying. So I think I was lucky also to work with a really talented animator, but I think it's really hard to arrive to that balance of color. And it really just takes practice. And literally, like you will see later, but just trying things out.
Yeah, and you mentioned earlier on, you mentioned Photoshop and Illustrator. It was Angus that asked in the chat, what were the animations created in? Like, was this Photoshop?
These are After Effects. So
After Effects.
Right now, like 100% of my work is in Illustrator. And then my friend worked on this in After Effects. So I think it's a kind of like the winning combination. Also because I love working with vectors and the fact that you can create like a full-on video and it will weigh like nothing.
Yeah, no, they do look good. And if you were to have a favorite project that you've worked on, apart from, of course, the Adobe Live, which we're going to visit in a bit.
Yeah, I cannot think of another one, honestly.
But, you know, is there, like, what was the one that you look back on? Like, the Slack one there is amazing. Even the pizza, my love for pizza will never change. I love it. You know, what one was, you know, what's more fun for you to work on?
I don't know, to be honest, but I really love when things are kind of like a bit more encompassing. So you have to think of like a branding aspect of it, an illustration aspect of it, a motion aspect of it. So it really like is a 360 thing. My favorite project is yet to come. Nice.
Cool. So you've got a lot of this sort of work here. I love the colors. There was a lot of appreciation in the chat for the typography that you use as well. How do you decide the fonts? I mean, you talked about the colors and, you know, how you've learned about color over the years, but how do you choose the right font?
Well, I think that luckily for us, there's a lot of really amazing typefaces coming out now that are variable and that have a lot of different weights. There's a few that I really love, and the one that I've used for the Adobe live segments is Acumen, which is your Behance font as well. And it has literally like, I don't know the number, probably 60 different ways from like a super condensed one to very wide extended one. So I think that's something that I really love using in my work because you can play around this kind of composition, right? So for me, this is really important, and I usually end up really modifying it as well. So really playing around with the font. I will show some of the stuff there and how I try to think about these things. Yeah.
And you said that in lockdown, you've been busy making like the Slack, you know, Slack is your office now, which is so cool. You know, so what else have we been doing in lockdown? Has it been similar to our other creatives in that they've revisited their older projects and redone, or are you still creating new?
I really try to create new things. I think I kind of not force myself, but probably felt the urge to create stuff all the time. This is why also I don't have all of it here, but I was trying to do something really every other day. And I was almost like asking people, like, tell me the best thing that happened to you in lockdown, and I will do a poster out of it. And my love for pizza will never change came from this as well. So really trying to get inspiration from what's happening to people on a daily basis and create work out of it.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think it's good to always be creating. We should never stop. There should always be some time, or everything inspires us to be creative. And we got your Behance profile on the screen as well. We've got your Instagram as well as your website on there. How do you find that people learn about your work? Is it really like is social media a big part in what you do? Or
no, Behance has been an amazing source of work for me. I think I've been a member since the beginning. And a lot of work that I've found was through Behance, but also a lot of clients I got found me on Behance for the first time, because I think it's such an easy way to see work that really fits in whatever you want to do. I think Instagram is also great, but it's hard to find the right person on it, right? So I think Instagram is great to share the daily stuff and keep the audience engaged and get inspiration. For me, it's my new blog. I save so many things and then I go back to it and then use it to get inspiration for my work. But Behance has been a source of work for me.
Yeah, no, definitely. Behance is such a great community, and I've definitely learned a lot. This, I was saying earlier on, this is like my 16th or 17th live stream, and the amount of things that I've picked up on so far. I've got a notebook and I'm writing down tips from Joe in Premiere Pro, and then Matt, and you. So, it's so good. And let's see some of the work that you've done then for Adobe Live. Yeah. It really is good.
So I was telling you before as well. I applied for the Adobe Community Fund, which has been amazing so far. So I applied for the thing where I was supposed to wait for a commission, and Emma from Adobe in Germany reached out to me and said, okay, we're doing a lot of these really amazing segments. People are watching more and more, but we want to brand them in a way. So we came up with this really fun names for all of the segments. There were 16 in the UK. But we think that your style will be something that could fit really well, because we think of them as kind of TV shows, almost like as a mix of a talk show, sitcom, something like that. So I think from her side, from Adobe side, there was just two things that to keep in mind: this kind of TV show vibe and something really vibrant and summer related, which I thought, well, this is going to be easy because this is what I do anyways. So in terms of inspiration for me, and I was telling you before as well, I really love bold typography that's almost kind of taking over the whole piece. And there are some really cool fonts coming from Really Type, other foundries that are really playful. And I think even when I do a static piece, I always try to think of typography in a way that's moving at all times when you see it. So these were some really cool inspiration pieces for me. And then also I was telling you before as well, I remember in the 80s, the MTV logo that was changing all the time, these kind of graphics, stuff that's almost like call outs, patterns, stuff like this was really, really interesting to me. This is something that I anyways use in my art, but this was definitely a really, really strong visual in my mind when I was talking to Emma, this MTV thing of things changing at all times. And we were also saying the trickiest thing is going to be not to create one visual, because that's something that we are aligned on and what we want to achieve, but how do you create 16 different segments that are visually different but are part of the same language? This is where the branding part comes in, right? So when I started to think about it, I was like, okay, I want to use the Behance font, but I want to use this condensed ultra black version because it's going to allow me to have a lot of text in a playful way on all of the visuals. Then I was also, okay, I want to use the Behance Palette because this is where the work is going to be featured on, but then add my own colors. So I decided on using these 8. So I think if you think about it, if you don't think about black and white, it's only 6 colors. And I really find a good trick to create super colorful, very vibrant things that actually work together and look simple is that it's actually just 6 colors. So I think sometimes people see my work and they think it's like a million colors, but it's actually very restricted, but the way you use it is a bit different.
And they go together so well.
Yeah, which actually they're like, primary colors basically. So it's nothing like crazy, but I think it's just the shades and how they interact. It's what makes the difference. And then I usually work a lot of creating a lot of patterns and things that are easily modifiable. Sometimes I take them from other pieces that I've done before, then I create some new ones and modify things. I think this is also a very easy way to create consistency, not just within what you're doing at the moment, but also with your work. So I think always something that I advise people is if you want to have your own style, obviously the first thing is really to have a vision of what you want to do and your voice in it. But also kind of reusing elements is really a super easy way to have a consistent style because it's going to, I think designers sometimes make the mistake of like always trying to create something new. And it's not about like what tools are using and if you're trying to create something new all the time. It's more about the idea should be different at all times, but then the tools can be the same.
Yeah, and there is a question on that. Actually, when you were talking about colors and having your style, Catherine asked, does Kay use tints from these color palettes?
Not really, no. I am more of a like 100% color blocking kind of girl. But yeah.
Fair enough.
I don't think...
You good?
Yeah, I think it almost like the color blocking works only because they're just this, crazy mix of contrasting colors. And if you start using tints, it kind of waters it down a bit. But this is just for my personal work, not for everybody.
Yeah. I've seen the work that you shared so far. It's very bold, very bright, very summery. It's brilliant. All of the colors really work together. I think there was another question from Sandrine, I think maybe directly to Stuart in the chat, but they were talking about variable aspects of color and filling in canvases. And actually, this brings me to a question to you, which is, do you do everything digitally, or do you find that you get creative with canvases and real, pens and paints as well, or is it really graphic that you're?
I'm not great at this in a way that I don't really sketch on paper. But I watched another talk from Behance on typography the other day from Eric. He was saying like, actually sketching is like a state of mind. You don't have to actually sketch on paper. You can actually sketch whenever you want. So what I do is usually I get a lot of inspiration, and not like from other design only, but also from elements, things I want to include. Then dump it on Illustrator and start creating little pieces out of it. And then from there, I start composing things together. So yeah, I'll kind of always start with an idea in my mind already of a style, and create like a little mood board of elements, and then I start from there.
Nice. And I know that these live sessions, they inspire us, I think, so much to challenge our own process, right? And you're looking at how other people do things, and you just think, oh, I need to give that a try, because it's a good time. I think during quarantine, it's definitely a good time to try new processes and new ways, right?
Absolutely.
So definitely. Stuart asks a question to you, which is the font family. Gareth has mentioned that some of your work reminds him of the great Saul Bass, the film title designer of the 60s.
That's a very nice compliment. Thank you, Gareth.
It's so good. Everyone's loving the colors and the fonts. It's really good. So how do you begin a project then? You've already looked at your typography, you've got your color palette, the shapes and patterns, your brief was summer. And so all of the work that you've got there is vibrant and bright and playful.
Yeah. So, we can actually now already start going into the more technical part of the stream. These are the 16 segments I created in the end. They're going to, I guess, start being implemented soon, together with the French and the German ones. And I can already, is it okay if I start showing you how I built it in Illustrator?
Please do. Yes, definitely.
Cool. Yeah, so basically, I usually try to be quite organized in my Illustrator files because I find it easier to work like this. You don't have to be, but I start, as I said, putting down elements I want to use and then try from there to move on to like how I want to use them. So I was showing you before, I have these colors that these are the ones that I picked from the Behance palette. These are the ones that I usually use actually, so it's not something new. And then as you see, they all really work together as well. So I know these are the colors I'm going to be using. And then I was showing you before the font, it has so much here, you see. So like, I think this is the best way to work because you can really pick from anything and still stay inside of the same family. So I chose this one because, as we said, I think it's really like a good mix of, it's still legible, it's not too condensed. It really creates, with the length of the words I have, it's creating nice blocks. Probably with German, it's going to be a bit more difficult. Maybe I will not be using the same, but I try to build the words already. Then I had these 16 canvases prepared because, especially on this project, I thought I don't want to work on one and then go to the second one when it's finished. I really want to think of the whole thing together. So I already like laid out my 16 pieces in the right format. And I thought, okay, I really want them to be bold and bright, and I'm going to map them out in terms of color based on different segments. So for example, if two segments were similar in what they do, the colors would be different just because I don't want them to look the same. And so I'm using all of the colors from my palette except for the white, because I think white background would look a bit more, let's say, poor in color. And then immediately started adding typography here. So one also other thing that I find really interesting is, as I said, playing around with type. So what I would usually do is already create outlines out of things and play around with it. So in this case, I kind of was thinking of the examples I showed you with the typography in motion and how it can be stacked. So I was playing around with these kind of things. Then obviously, if, for example, I would change color here to white, immediately it creates even more contrast. So I was also trying to find really cool, let's say, association between the titles and typography to have this kind of expressive typography. So you see wander off is obviously the F is wandering off from the screen. It's kind of a bit more playful. Here, this one was one of my personal favorites to work on because it was the longest one. So I was like, okay, how are we going to put this all together? So I was like, okay, this is really cool. I immediately thought of like eggs and bacon and beans. Yeah. And it's kind of like really cool. So I was already imagining how this could be animated with the sessions being in the focus. I think also for Type Hype, I was thinking of the cover for the FemType book that has this umlaut, so this could be also really interesting. I really love how simple typography, if you just play around with weights and sizes, it really creates such a dynamic point of view. So this is what I did first. I just really laid out all of the typography and the color in all of the 16 little pieces. And then from there, what I did is really started to play around with the patterns and the elements. So I think we were saying maybe I could start with the community commute and show how I did this one, because this is the title of this segment, right? But you will see that here a lot of the elements are really repeated. And I try to have so many like small references to what the segment is about. So obviously this is what would Joe do. So Emma told me this is also about like structuring work, layering, composing and stuff. So even these small kind of rectangle shapes were references to layers and folders and After Effects. And I think what I really enjoy about these kind of things is these small details that don't really tell you like, oh, this is what it's about, but it really has references that are simple and very visual. Here, for example, we had I was inspired by Patricia, who was doing the master on XD, and she has these kind of stickers on her computer. So I was like, oh, this is really fun. Wonder Off Wednesdays was about holidays and the beach. So this is also like a very simplified version of that. Fresco, obviously, a lot of sketching, a lot of patterns and stuff like this. I really try to, as I said, reuse the elements and build this kind of vision of what the segment could be like. So yeah, I also said before that I create the patterns in advance. So some of these things I had from before, it's simple shapes, simple patterns and lines. Other things like these kind of patterns I did on the spot. So usually what I do is, for example, create these kind of lines and patterns. So these were simple circles that I really made myself because I like the way they're not really completely aligned. So they create a bit more of a, let's say, natural pattern. So you can do a lot of things with them afterwards. Create.
And you said that you don't draw your designs out first on a sketch on paper, right? You're literally just going from your mind straight into Illustrator to build the shapes, and that is good.
Yeah.
Great.
I mean, in a way, I do have an idea of what I want to do, right? So it's not completely just doing things, but for me, knowing more or less what I want to do, knowing how I want to do it, I just start doing it and then see where it goes.
So good. Jackie just said that in the chat. She said, these are so good. And Stuart said, endless summer vibe. So
that's
true.
Good.
There's somebody that's asked, do you keep a sketchbook or is it all digital? I think that you just answered that actually, that it's all digital, right?
Yeah, I think that it's a mix of me being just very digital in general, which is really bad, and I'm admitting it. But also because the type of work I do really works because it's so vibrant and digital. And I think if I sketch it out, it just doesn't have the same vibe. But yeah, I think definitely I would not disengage people from using sketchbooks because I think that's wonderful.
And that Stuart's made very British comment there. He designs as he goes. You have a rough idea and crack on. Very British way to get on with it. I love it.
But this is maybe also my mentality. I'm really fast. I love doing things, as I said before. I have an idea because I read something and then just do it and publish it the same night. Which for me, it's maybe my way to deal with anxiety of like seeing your work somewhere. I know some people are perfectionists and they're going to wait for a month until it's perfect and then maybe publish it or not. I'm more like, I need just to do it because if not, I'm going to think too much about it. And it's fine as well because I'm not precious about it. It's only like my profiles that I'm not, going to go live on a billboard. So
Yeah. And do you think, Kay, that you mentioned earlier on that you built these for our UK sessions and that you're going to do the same for the German sessions. And obviously German words are a lot larger than English. And so will you approach it in the same way? Because of course, like you had that large breakfast sessions. I know the sessions are named differently across our different countries, but will you go about it the same way in German, just getting the words in the same way that you just showed us, or is it slightly different?
Yeah. I think it will be quite the same. I have to say that I still don't have the actual wording. Some of it is going to just be literally translated. Other things are going to be new. But we're going to try to do the same thing. I don't want to think about it as like being different. I also probably, luckily, because I live in Germany, I'm going to ask some people for advice, whether it's, okay to do the same with the language, but I think it's going to be more or less the same. And I've had some experience designing things in a lot of languages like Arabic, Korean, And at the end of the day, it's the same.
Yeah. Yeah, true. Yeah, because it's the same process. And I love what you've done with the book club. I love that
Yes.
one with the light shining on the books. So good.
Yeah. This was actually one of my favorite ones as well, because it was like something where I was like, okay, I kind of see the books and something, but I cannot just do like a bunch of rectangles. This is going to be less dynamic. So I thought, if the light comes in, that's going to be really fun. And it's also, I think, so simple as well.
It does.
This is literally what I was saying about just making sure you're building contrast at all times. So because the yellow and the black and the white are all so contrasting, I think this is what creates a lot of dynamic kind of feel to it. And you see that then the yellow is in the center, and this is where your focus is, whereas then the contrast between the pink and the red is less visible, and this is where the kid kind of almost stands in the back. So I know this is a very, very kind of top level thinking, but I really feel like there's a certain composition in it where you can almost see the 3D, but it's all very flat.
It looks really good. Done a really good job with that. There is a question from Dark Hours who says, how do you capture ideas on the fly? Are you able to wait until you get to a computer?
Well, is the question like if I'm working, if I think about something and then I'm not there, what do I do? I think that usually I just work on this when I'm in the zone. And I mean, let's face it, we're never like too far away from a computer for more than a few hours. So you can always remember.
That's true. Especially these days. Do you know, when I was, I think it was a few years ago, I used to always say that I'd have great ideas and I'd dream them, and I'd wake up thinking, oh my gosh, I've got to write it down. And so my family bought me a pillowcase that you could write on. It was one of those like fabric pens.
Really?
It's never a good idea. You do wake
People
up.
People are so smart. That's crazy.
It didn't work as well as it should. But,
like you don't have your phone next to you and you cannot like record what you
Exactly. You're so right though. Like in quarantine, everybody is so close to their computers all the time. Like we're replying to emails all the time, and we're always on, right? So true.
So yeah. But also I think it's happened many times in the past that I've thought of something and I'm like, hold on, I need to like put it down somehow, and then just like put a reference in. But yeah.
Yeah. So how do you, I've got a question about your, like the art that you add to them, so the squiggles and the dots. I could see how you'd made all of the dots. How do you make the shapes? Like, is it quite an easy process? Because it looks like you've got a pen there that you've taken
so I'm probably like one of the few people in the world that draws with the trackpad from the laptop itself. And I think since I'm, again, like a very bad practice from my side, the same as not sketching, I really kind of learned to draw with it from the beginning. So I've been doing this, probably using Illustrator since I'm 15. So like 5 years ago. No, I'm joking. So basically, I usually like to do it on the spot. So probably, let's say, I would pick a color and then maybe like a thicker stroke, something rounded. And then thankfully, because Illustrator, it actually sometimes starts, no, it's not working, but you know what I mean? It snaps to the shape you want. So, right, this is already decent enough. So I think I really like to sketch kind of on the spot. So I do the shapes that I like, and then I fix them sometimes. I would definitely advise people to use a tablet because that's much better. So don't listen to me.
No, do you know, what we see, everyone's process is different, and really it's preference. Gareth says that he works with a wireless trackpad, no mouse, either that or the Wacom tablet.
I'm so impressed with Gareth, and I'm impressed with people who can use the tablet really well, because that's really wonderful, like when you get to used to it. But to my defense, I really work in a lot of different circumstances. It's not always like at a desk with a tablet. So I like to be able to do this on the fly.
So that's good though. That's, you can work from anywhere, right? You can just go anywhere, anytime. So good.
Yes.
Luca's just put in the chat, trackpad for life. It sounds like a song. But yeah, trackpad for life. Definitely.
Yeah.
Cool. So we are just over halfway. If you have any questions for Kay, get in touch, right? We're on behance.net/live. Any questions about Kay's process, anything like that. Kay, there is one thing I want to know is, how did you learn? Like, did you do a degree in this, in graphic design and illustration, or how did you get into it?
So already when I was in high school, I was doing graffiti. And I remember seeing like one of the coolest people in our city doing graffiti and doing a lot of illustration, and I was like, what tool are you using? This is amazing. He was like, oh, there is this software, it's called Illustrator, it's really great. So I was like, okay, how do I get it? So I started doing this when I was like 15, 16, trying to do the layouts and vector illustration. That was for me at the time. I think it was also a big trend, but also for me it was amazing. So I started doing this, and then I studied design in Venice in Italy. This was more like a really comprehensive education about history and theory of typography and art. But then most of the practical things I really had to learn by myself, and also then working afterwards in design studios. So really getting to know stuff from other people and learning at all times. I think I'm probably right in saying that most people who are watching this and most people who are on Behance really have the passion for design, and like everything you do, you're going to learn something about a tool or another person, or trying to see how they did this, how can I try to do it. So it's kind of like constant knowledge sharing process. This is why we're here as well right now.
Yeah, learn on the go, right? Completely. And I think YouTube is really good for that. We've got Behance Live.
Yeah.
We've YouTube, there's so many ways, and a lot of people, a lot of creatives during these times as well, instead of creating work, they're teaching how to do their work and sharing processes even more. So yeah, it's such a good way.
Yeah, I think we're like the generation of people who, whenever you want to do something, instead of thinking about it, you just Google it and find it on YouTube and try to do it. Yeah, there's nothing stopping you.
No, true. And so you mentioned, you did, like the graphic design, and you said that you use After Effects as well. Is that something that you taught yourself, or was that part of the learning that you had? Like, was it like Adobe Live learning, Behance, YouTube?
It was, partially it was like a course I did a few years ago, probably like 5 years ago, where I learned like simple things. And then I tried to do stuff by myself and ask friends a lot of things and how to do things. I definitely have very simple skills, but I love motion graphics. So I love thinking of my work in motion as well. And I always try to do things by myself as well.
I love it. I mean, I love all of these colors and shapes. It really reminds me a little bit of Adobe Max, right? And all of the colors, and like that we always have a really good color palette, and it's always there's motion graphics and dripping into each other.
Yes.
So good. So good.
Absolutely. No, I always think of everything I do that like either I'm going to try to animate it myself, or it's going to get animated in the future, because even like these segments, I think you cannot tell me you want to do TV segments and then not animate them afterwards, right?
Yeah, that's true. That's true, yeah. And what are your big no-nos, right? So what if you were to start a project and someone was to work with you as an assistant or something, and you'd create these together, what would be your advice, to say avoid this, avoid that? What would you?
Well, I think it's really important that you find the balance between like inspiration and your own style. I think that's perfectly normal to get inspired by things and even try to copy them in the beginning and try to see what's your style. But I think it's also really, really rewarding and important to have your own way of doing things. So also just not trying to follow too much the trends. You know what you're doing and this is your style. And I have so many amazing artists that I love, but I'm not doing the same style because I'm, for example, not a personal fan of like complicated collages, although it would seem so. But I really admire people who do. Or for example, I'm not a photographer, but I can still appreciate that. So finding whatever you want to do and kind of sticking to it.
Yeah, that's good advice.
And not overthinking. I think a lot of problems come from overthinking things.
Yeah, that's true. Because how long would you typically spend on a project like this?
Well, this was a bit complex to begin with. Actually, it was like faster in the beginning to come up with a style, but I really took a lot of time in kind of creating the world behind each segment to be different. And I tried to learn a lot about the segments themselves. I went to watch a bunch of these live streams as well to see what they're doing, right? Like if it's Demystified with Tim and Tony, like what did they do? What do they talk about? What can I learn from this? So this was maybe a bit more tricky than the actual design work.
Yeah, because the design comes in, like you mentioned, with Joe's and his organization, and Tim's put in the chat, Demystified sounds fun. Demystified with Tim and Tony. I know that with regular people that come back, it's really great to see so many familiar faces. But every time we dial into Adobe Live, that session's hilarious. It's so good. So yeah, definitely a good one. You've captured it so well. You can see for all of these the design and exactly what you've done there. It really is good. There's lots of people chatting in the chat about trackpads and mice and things like that. What PC do you use? Are you on a Mac? Are you on a PC? Like, what's your kit?
Oh, I'm like all the way Mac.
Yeah.
Since forever. I find it much easier, especially if you're a designer. I'm not saying that you shouldn't use a PC, but this is I'm just so used to it, and it's just so much easier.
Mm. Yeah, it definitely is a preference thing. I'm a PC and I can't imagine switching to a Mac. And you're probably the same with the PC because your productivity would just completely stop right until you learn. It's like
no, sometimes, of course, I haven't used one in like probably 15 years. And if I tried, I'm like, what am I supposed to do with this? Like,
no, totally
it's the same as like Android, iPhone kind of thing.
It is, yeah, no, totally. And it's all preference. And I think that's one of the things that we've seen with all of our different creatives through the Adobe Lives, that everyone it's really preference. And when we looked at FemType, we had 3 different ladies that came on and showed, their processes. And Raisa was doing InDesign FemType. And then we had, I think it was, let me just check now, Jasmine that was doing, Jasmine Serra was doing it in Fresco. And then Emily was doing this in Illustrator. So everybody has a preference to what they use, but the end result is amazing. So,
I love seeing these things. This is why I also love watching these streams, because it's so different how people use the same tools.
No, definitely. And so your process then in Illustrator, this is the main app that you use. And then of course you mentioned that you go from there then into After Effects to get those animated. Do you have a specific setup? Because I've noticed that the way that you use Illustrator to me looks like XD, almost like there are wireframes and you've got your palettes over here and over there. This is a different look to me that I've been used to. Yeah,
probably. I mean, I'm not saying that since the beginning I've always used it super well, but I think in terms of like how much stuff I have to produce and saving things and not being always like looking for things, I really like to be organized at the beginning, and then it really helps out in the long run, because you will be spending a lot of time in this file and you need to know where your stuff is. I also work a lot on Sketch in this case, and I think I really like these features of like having a library. Obviously I can use also the Adobe library here on the side, but I don't know, I find it very easy to work when everything is in this big artboard and I have everything that I need, like a little toolkit.
It's good.
I'm sure that people would agree with me that it's just easier when you have everything visually there. So I was also showing before, like when I was doing this community Commute, Emma mentioned that this is going to be about like travel and commuting to work. But then I thought, but we're at home and the only commute is like you opening Zoom. So, how can I do this? So I was thinking, okay, because it's the UK segment, I wanted to use the underground logo for the tube. Yeah. Then I had some tickets here and this kind of like background color, how the text is laid out, and also these like zoom windows on the side. So this is where I already kind of knew that I wanted to create something like this that is a mix of tickets and actual people in Zoom. So you have this
Really
kind
good.
of dual thing. And I thought, oh, this is going to be really fun to use these patterns inside of the little people. That's going to kind of bring it to life. I was also playing around with this yesterday on After Effects. I was mentioning this can also be really fun, to see how it looks like in motion.
It looks good with the head like bobbling a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
You can clearly see that that's the London Underground though, clearly.
Yeah. This is also an interesting point when I design. I'm always like, okay, I like these like obscure references, but then also you need to be able to, explain what you're doing. So I think there is a thin line between being really visible and saying, okay, everybody knows the tube. This is an easy reference to commuting. And like, let's hide these two layers behind this thing,
Yeah, no, definitely. And do you find that you have to step away from your work at times where you think, no, I'm changing too much. I need to step away, take 5 minutes, get a cup of tea?
Yeah, absolutely. This happens so much, especially, I was saying before, like these were, the first 3, 4 you do very easily and you're super happy with them. And then you're like, okay, I still have 12 to go. And I'm not going to have inspiration for all of them. So sometimes I would just, I remember some of them were just really hard, like the Tony Hammer show. It took me a while to do, like the Adobe 6060. I also knew like I want to do this this kind of thing that was almost kind of like constructivist posters, but it really took a while to make it a bit more interesting and engaging because I was ending up with like just very flat things. So it really does take time, and my advice would be really just not to do it. Whenever you're stuck, just like step away. There's nothing you can do to save it in that moment. Yeah. Also, one thing I told people before, and everybody's a bit shocked sometimes, but it's like sometimes you just need to delete everything you've done. Not like the whole project, right? But like just if you're struggling with one of these pieces, just delete it and start from scratch. Literally open a new window and start from there. This has helped me. I don't know if this is like a mental thing or if it's real, but sometimes you are stuck because you're thinking too narrowly, and I think you need to go and like open a new window, literally.
I completely agree. I do a lot of slides, a lot of presentations, and sometimes just starting from scratch, doing a few different ideas, and then going back to the presentation again and actually comparing the two. Yeah, it does. Sometimes you just need to step away, start again sometimes. But yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Completely agree with you, completely. So I know that there's been a bit of chat today about the weather, about the humidity. I don't know what it's like in Italy, okay, but over in the UK at the moment, us Brits aren't used to this heat, so we don't have aircon or anything.
I'm not sure why it's so warm. This is ridiculous, but I have air conditioning, thankfully, so
that's
sorry.
Yeah, we had an excellent thunderstorm last night. Well, I'm in Cardiff, so yeah, we had a big thunderstorm.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And it's kind of cleared the air a bit, but it's still just as humid today. And I can see that a few of you are all agreeing in the chat.
Yeah.
Saying, And Siobhan asks, is Kay on Behance? Yes.
Yes.
Actually, Tim can post the link to the Behance in the chat for you, but I know that we shared that at the beginning. There's some great work that you can see on
you can go on behance.net/hello this is Kay.
Fantastic. I'm just looking through now. So when you use After Effects, Gareth had a question who mentioned that would it be better to use After Effects and doing the type live in there so that you can use the presets or kerning, etc., that they have for type,
absolutely,
rather than using shape layers with the letter forms on? So what's your process there?
Absolutely, I think that's true. I think I find it easier to build everything you can build in already in After Effects. You should. I replicated this whole thing except for the patterns there because it's just easier to manipulate the shapes and the text and everything. Yeah, you can literally transform everything into vectors in there. So yeah, I absolutely agree. And even this font, I mean, you can easily install it here from the Creative Cloud, you can find Acumen, and you can just activate it and use it for Illustrator and After Effects. I think that's the easiest way.
Great. Yeah, it's pretty fast actually that way, isn't it? It's good that everything talks to each other. And Siobhan says she loves your work on Pinterest, or for Pinterest, that you've done.
Oh, thank you so much, Siobhan. Yeah, this was a fun one as well. It was another project where like there was a lot of things to do, because I got a list of elements that I was supposed to include. So, you know, they had different rooms, all this stuff that I was supposed to illustrate inside. So that was a bit tricky, because you have like, you know, 10 items per illustration, and usually I'm maybe and sometimes used to work a bit more freely. You know, like people know what's the mood or maybe the copy, but not actually what elements they want. But it really was super fun to work on, because it creates a bit of a limitation that I really like as well. You know, when you like have a problem, how do I add something to this that doesn't maybe belong there, but I have to do it. And again, the composition versus color kind of thing, which I love.
Yeah, it's so just the colors. Like I just get focused completely into it, because it all just works together so well, really well.
Yes, I think there's something so satisfying for our brains to see a lot of colors at once.
I agree. Yeah, they definitely. And Chanel says, I love the color scheme too. So yeah, you've got that in there. So, you know, lots of appreciation for your work. It's always good to see everybody really loving what you do. And, you know, as I said, you know, the colors are great. Your process is really straightforward, actually. It's really easy to see how you can create this great work, right? Just, you know, using the right, you know, typography, colors. And it's a nice, simple approach. It's nice to see it look so easy, right? Really.
Yeah, I know. This is the tricky thing when you need to, like, maybe, you know, if I was doing 3D and there was a live stream, I could show exactly how to do things technically, and it takes a while, and you're like, wow, so impressive. But this is actually easy to do technically. It's just the whole process that takes the time, the research, the thinking behind it that's complicated. But when you explain it, it's like, oh, that was easier. And then this like Sherlock Holmes thing when you explain the result and you're like, oh, but that was simple.
yeah. And they're like, and then it's done. And you're like, oh my gosh. Yeah.
It's like actually days of work.
Yeah.
Pushing pixels.
It looks so easy though. And I think this is the best way to get into it, to start having a go ourselves, right? And to have a good go. I know that we had an XD masterclass that I was part of last week, and Patricia was taking us through starting artboards from scratch, and I'd never seen it look so easy. And so it's really good to see XD in this way. It's really good to see Illustrator in this way with you today. Really, really good. And I know that in the chat, I think a lot of people are talking about Pinterest and about different mood boards for designs. Do you use Pinterest for mood boards?
I do use Pinterest a lot. I started using Instagram more for this because I just find it easier, the saving function on there. But I do use Pinterest a lot as well, and I think I use it more to see new things than to save my things. And I think it's brilliant because it's not just about design; it's really anything you want. It has.
Oh yes. I'm addicted. I need to step away from Pinterest, I think. Like, I'm doing a house renovation, and so I have like bathrooms and front doors, and oh my gosh, step away.
Yeah. Well, I think this is their selling point. Like, what Pinterest does best is sure graphic design and fashion, and like, why should I dye my hair? Like, but I think the home kind of decor thing is their number one.
Yeah, if you type in illustration in Pinterest, I've seen some of these designs come up. So, definitely have a look in there and do that. So what's next for you then? What's on apart from doing these in German, the Adobe Live session?
Well, after I'm done with that, then there's French segments as well. So that's going to be good. I am really enjoying this job. So thank you, Adobe. I just want to continue working on these kind of things. This is really amazing that I'm able to do what I'm passionate about and also what I'm trained to do. My really passion is also branding and kind of being able to push this kind of visual onto brands we use every day. So I would love to be able to do that more as well.
Definitely. And you know that as I said, you know, the colors and the shapes that you use, this would be ideal to get kids into graphic design and to show kids, you know, how easy it can be to create something. So I think that's a good thing.
They're better than us at these technical things. I'm sure they will be able to do this and pick it up immediately.
Yeah, my daughter's on the iPads. They're only young and they're already like, Mum, look, how do you do this? How do you do that? And like, teach me. So yeah, totally agree with you. Totally agree. Well, there is a little bit more information that's been posted into the chat for everybody about the community fund today. And I know that Kay mentioned, you know, that this is something that you shared at the beginning of your presentation. Is there anything that you'd add to the community funds there, Kay, that you can tell everybody about?
Well, I think it's really wonderful. There are two ways you can participate, either by getting a grant for a project you already have. So if you have something in mind that you would like to develop and you need some funds and some time to do it, I think that's brilliant. Or if you don't have a project in mind, you can always just apply with your work. I think you only need to be like above 18, nothing else. And get some really fun commissions like this one from Adobe. I think this is a brilliant way to help people have some more space and time to do things they love instead of, you know, chasing for work. So this is really cool. And it's really easy to apply.
Fab, yeah, the link is in the chat, everybody. So definitely go in there and have a look. It's been really lovely having you on today. We've only got about 4 minutes left. And so if anybody has any last questions for Kay, get them in, you know, definitely. And we've had some good tips that, you know, you said, and you're in Italy at the moment. Are you coming back to the UK anytime soon, or are you going to be in Italy for a bit longer?
So I live in Berlin, going back.
Oh, Berlin, sorry.
No worries. I wouldn't mind living in the UK either. No, I'm going back in a few days. And yeah, hopefully it's going to be very, very warm. And I'm going to use those lakes Berlin is famous for. And yes, anybody who has any questions even afterwards, you can really always drop me a line, add me on Instagram, text me.
Fab. And we can always see your work, of course, on the Adobe Live sessions.
Absolutely.
So all of that will start coming through soon. So everybody will get to see your work. And it really is good. I think you've got a really great, straightforward process that's easy to follow. And just, you know, as you said, just experiment with the colors, make the shapes, you know, some of the advice that you gave through this live stream has been really useful and really good to hear, really easy, you know, tips that you've shared. So it has been really lovely. Cool. So as I said, we are live in Behance. We do have 2 minutes for any more questions. We'll be continuing the chat in Discord following this. Angus has said, great session and comments. Thanks. So thank you, Angus. And yes, for everybody that's joined, it's great to see you back. We're here every day, so every weekday, I should say, from midday until 1 p.m. So come back and join us. We've got some great sessions planned for the rest of the week. Well, we're Thursday, so we've got one more tomorrow with Tony and Tim, I think. And then we'll be back next week with some more sessions. Thank you, Kay. It's been really lovely.
It was lovely.
Your designs, really. And thank you so much for your time today.
Bye. Okay. Thank you so much.
All right. Bye, everybody. Thanks for joining. Bye.
Bye-bye.